Hello and welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, and today we're talking about where the Phantom of the Opera went wrong. Before we get into this, I want to point out that I'm specifically talking about the 2004 Joel Schumacher film, not the stage musical in general. The musical is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, musicals of all time. It's the longest running show on Broadway for a reason. It has great visuals, great music, it's got a great story, and is my personal favorite musical ever made. In fact, I'd give it a 10 out of 10. I think it's the peak of stage musicals, but that's just my opinion, and we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the movie, which is closer to a 6 out of 10. Now, that's not exactly bad per se, but that's a far cry from as great as it could have been, so what went wrong specifically to make it just okay? The imagery is dark and creepy and perfectly matches and expands the universe that we were given by the musical. I love the additional backstory that we get as well. It's loosely based on the book, but still more accurate to the musical. And for the most part, the casting is actually all really good. I love the Christine they got, and I love the Carlotta they got. The singing isn't quite as good as it is in the musical, but that makes sense. They're actors, not singers, so I can give them a little bit of leeway there. And the directing is actually pretty good. Trust me, I'm not a Joel Schumacher fan at all, but he does okay in this. So if I just mentioned all these good things about this adaptation and how the story already itself is perfect, then what could have possibly gone wrong to ruin this movie? Honestly, there's only one real thing that's wrong with this movie, but unfortunately, it's the most important thing in the movie. The Phantom. Christine is not the main character, and her romance with Raoul is not the point of the story either. The story at its core is not a romance, and it's only a horror in the traditional sense like Frankenstein is. The character arc of the Phantom is the focal point of this story, going from being in love with Christine, to realizing that she doesn't love him back, to trying to force her to love him, to realizing that that's not what love is after he's been given love, so then he lets her go because he loves her. It's a story that I'm sure a lot of you can relate to. When you don't get the love that you want, you try to force it, you try to take it until you realize that that's not love, that's hate, that's harmful. And this was him realizing that. He'd never been in love before, he'd never been given love before, and so when he tries to take what he wants, he then realizes it's not right, it's not real that way, and so then he gives it away because that's what love is. So that character arc is the focus of this story. So therefore the Phantom is the most important thing about this story. So who do we cast as the Phantom of the Opera, or the angel of music in this movie? In the book he's described as being corpse-like with no nose, sunken eyes and cheeks, yellow parchment-like skin, and only a few wisps of ink-black hair covering his head. He's also often described as a walking skeleton, being so gaunt and ghastly and disfigured that you would think he was a skeleton, or you'd think he was dead if you saw him. That's how he's described, so obviously Gerard Butler was the perfect choice. This is our ghastly, gaunt, so skinny that you'd think he was a skeleton figure. Makes sense, right? Now I get it, in the musical they did change his appearance, like they gave him a nose and they changed the scarring to be on just one side of his face. I get it and I understand that. But given the budget restraints and the effects restraints that you have doing a musical, it makes sense that he would only look kind of scarred, but you have so much more free reign to do in the movies, why wouldn't you take the liberty of it? But instead of using their extra ability to make him more gaunt and more grotesque and more disfigured, they went the opposite direction and made him sexier? What? And not only did they get a sexy actor to play him, they barely disfigured his face. When that first reveal happens, it almost is unnoticeable.
This is what you wanted to see!
Well, I'm cured! You had every opportunity to make the entire right side of his face grotesque. You could have turned him into Two-Face. You could have ripped off that side of his face and it would have been great. But you didn't. You shied away and made him sexier. You tried to play up the fact that this is a sexy movie. It's a romance about a guy and his lust for this girl. Which, yes, that's part of the story, but it's not the focal point. But we shouldn't expect any less from Joel Schumacher, who thought it was a great idea to cast Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, George Clooney as Batman, and to give Batman and Robin their own bat nipples. Yeah, this is that guy. Are we really surprised that we got a fat Phantom of the Opera here? A sexy, hunk, fat Phantom? God, Joel, what is wrong with you? But honestly, I could look past and move on from this whole appearance thing if Gerard Butler had the voice of an angel, because that's how the Phantom of the Opera is supposed to be. He's supposed to be the best singer you've ever heard, so when you hear him, you think it's a literal angel singing. And the original stage production had a voice like that was a little bit higher pitched, it was a little bit nasally, almost like he didn't have a nose, and he was singing in such a way that was so out of this world, it was amazing.
Insolent boy, this flame of passion basking in your glory.
And to put it bluntly, Gerard Butler can't sing. He can't. Gerard Butler can't sing so much that they literally had to rewrite the songs for his lack of ability. Now granted, this was around the time that Broadway was making a shift in the way they sang their songs. They went from a traditional singing style where you would sing as well as you can to a more of a talk singing, so that you're kind of talking, kind of singing, so it sounds more realistic. Even though it's a musical, it's not realistic anyway, so what's the point? And I'm not sure if this inspired that trend or if this was part of the trend. I'm not sure which came first. It's the chicken or the egg. But regardless, it's a different style of singing that Gerard Butler took up. So comparing him directly to the original isn't completely fair. So we're not only going to compare them two, we're also going to compare the 25th anniversary, because that singer does it in that same style of talk singing that Broadway is now known for. So that way it's completely fair. We have the original, we have Gerard Butler, and we have a modern approach that's easily accessible, so we can compare all of them and know the difference and understand the difference. Now the first song I want to compare is the music of the night, because it's probably the easiest song that the Phantom has to sing in this. So the difference between the two levels of skill is less noticeable, but I do want to point out some things. If you listen to the original cast recording, you can hear that the Phantom's voice is flowing on top of the music, like it's dictating where it goes.
Floating, falling, sweet intoxication. Touch me, trust me, savor each sensation. Let the dream begin, let your darker side give in to the power of the music that I write. The power of the music of the night. Floating, falling, sweet intoxication. Touch me, trust me, savor each sensation. Let the dream begin, let your darker side give in to the power of the music that I write. The power of the music of the
Now he sounds okay in this song, but he's certainly not the best singer you've ever heard in your life, and like I said, the music is masking his voice a lot. So let's move on to something a little bit more obvious and unmaskable. Near the end of Act 1, during the finale of All I Ask of You reprise, we have a very powerful note by the Phantom, and the lead up to it is just as emotional and powerful. How are the differences shown here?
You will curse the day you did not do.
You will curse the day you did not do.
The original Phantom's voice flows in with the music's swell like it's an instrument in of itself. Gerard Butler is abrupt and harsh, like somebody shouting without any musical talent. And you might defend him saying, well, he's doing the talk singing thing you were talking about, so it's going to be more abrupt, it's going to sound more abrasive. And that's right, it is, but here's how that should be done well, as demonstrated by the 25th anniversary crew.
You will curse the day you did not do.
You hear the difference there that I'm talking about? It's still abrupt, it's still abrasive, he's still doing the talk singing thing, but it sounds so much better. It sounds so much more like he actually has musical talent. And then from there we move on to the actual end of the first act, which is one of the most iconic moments in the entire musical. This is where the Phantom hits one of the most impressive notes, if not the most impressive note in the entire show, and it sounds exactly like this.
All that the Phantom asked of you.
And here's how the 25th anniversary version sounds.
All that the Phantom asked
lasted for only 8 seconds, but in his defense, he was doing the talk singing thing and he didn't take a preparation breath beforehand. So holding the note for 8 seconds is impressive, but understandably less so than the original. So how does Gerard Butler portray this most iconic moment in the Phantom of the Opera musical?
Oh, that the phantom must stop
Not only does it sound bad, it only lasts 6 seconds, and he had a preparation breath beforehand. The 8 seconds was impressive because he didn't have a preparation breath, so that made sense. This version it's 6 seconds because it sucks. It's less than half of the original time. It's less than half. Let's just listen to them side by side so we understand really what the difference between 6 and 14 seconds is. Oh, that's supposed to be the angel of music. That's supposed to be the angel of music. So yes, I understand talk singing is less impressive, but it can be done better than that. The main appeal of the talk singing style is that it's supposed to be better and easier for conveying emotion in your singing. So let's look at the most emotional moment in the musical and movie and compare and see if that's actually the case in this situation. The most emotional moment in this story is what I was talking about earlier, where the Phantom has an epiphany where he tells Christine and Raoul to go away together. And this is him telling that. So how does that sound in the original?
Go now, don't let them find you. Take the boat, leave me here. Go now, don't wait. Just take her and go before it's too late. Go! Go now! Go now and leave me!
It's very good singing, it's very emotional, and it just sounds really good. So let's compare that to how Gerard Butler does it in his talk singing style.
Go now. Don't let them find you. Take the boat, swear to me, never to tell. The secret you know of the angel in hell.
He's talking, yet it still sounds less emotional, it still sounds worse singing, it's worse in every way. You were given the advantage of being allowed to talk and you still didn't convey any emotion. I don't understand that. So, let's take a look at how talk singing is supposed to be done by looking at the 25th anniversary version to see how they did it.
Take the boat. Swear to me never to tell. Of the secret you know. Of this angel in hell. Go. Go now and leave me.
Well, well, that was different. I don't know that's an artistic choice that I would have made, but it actually sounds really good. It's very raw, it's very emotional, and it's so well done that I can't be mad at it. So yeah, it's frustrating because I wanted, and I want to love this movie so much because there's so much done well in this movie and it's a story I love so much. It's one of my favorite stories ever made and I wish there was a musical movie of it that was as good as a musical. There just isn't. I've gone through and over this entire movie and there's not one redeemable thing about Gerard Butler's performance in this movie. You're supposed to cast somebody who's not attractive, so you cast somebody who is. You're supposed to get the best singer of all time and you cast somebody that has no musical experience. What was the idea behind that? Why does Joel Schumacher always mess stuff up? I'm surprised he didn't put nipples on his suit. So that's where this movie went wrong, and it's a shame because it could have been great, it just wasn't. So hopefully we get another one soon, maybe with somebody who more looks the part and somebody that can actually sing. Here's an idea: don't cast A-list celebrities in movies just because they're A-list celebrities. Maybe actually get the best person for that role to be that role. That's an idea. I don't know. I don't care. Just please make a better movie and don't cast Gerard Butler in it. Thanks. Okay, bye. I'm Simon from the Simon's Rants, and that was my rant for today.